Emily missed the most important flight of her life. That flight was supposed to take her to a job interview in Seattle, her only shot at escaping the grind of working 2 jobs barely making rent. She had prepared for this moment for months, and then she missed it, completely by choice, not because of traffic, not because she overslept. She chose to miss it, to help an elderly man she had never met struggling with a broken suitcase in the middle of a crowded airport. People walked past him like he was invisible, but Emily stopped. She thought she had just thrown everything away. Until 4 hours later, someone called her name, calmly, smiling, and said, "You didn't miss your future. You just met it in disguise." Emily Carter was 28. She lived in a small, 1-bedroom apartment outside Albuquerque. No pets, no roommate, no time. By day, she worked at a community library. By night, she delivered groceries. She didn't complain. But most nights, she ate alone, too tired to cook, too broke to eat out. She wasn't lazy. She was tired. Tired of always being just one bill away from panic. Her dream marketing. She'd built social pages for local businesses on weekends, free of charge. She loved seeing something grow because of her work. But nobody saw her. Not when she was stocking books. Not when she carried 10 bags of groceries up 3 flights of stairs. People smiled, but they didn't see her. 3 months ago, she applied for a position in Seattle. No reply. Then, last week, an email came in. Interview confirmed. August 1st, 6:30 p.m. That flight. It wasn't just a flight. It was her first real chance. The email sat unread for 2 days. Emily had almost missed it hidden between discount ads and payment reminders. When she saw it, she stared at the screen for a long time. Interview confirmed. She reread it 5 times before her hands started shaking. It wasn't a big position, just entry-level, but it came from a real company in downtown Seattle, somewhere she could learn, grow, belong. She didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Last time she shared hope out loud, it got laughed off. Her sister called it another distraction. Her old boss said, "People like us don't move up, Emily." So this time she kept it to herself. She printed her resume on library paper, highlighted her bus route, bought the cheapest ticket available. It was one flight, one chance, and she was going to show up, on time, alone. Emily set her alarm for 3:45 a.m. She didn't sleep much that night, just turned in bed staring at the ceiling. By 4:15 she was on the road, hands gripping the steering wheel, knuckles tight. Her second-hand car made a strange noise on the freeway, but she kept going. The airport was 2 hours away. She packed light. 1 tote bag, a folder with printed resumes, a pair of shoes she'd only worn once to her last interview, the one that led nowhere. She didn't eat breakfast, just filled a travel mug with coffee and left a sticky note on her fridge. "You showed up. That's enough." As she pulled into the parking lot, the sun was just rising. Pink sky, cold air, quiet. She checked the time, 6:41 a.m. Her flight wouldn't board until 8:10. She was early. It felt good to be early for something that mattered, and this time she wasn't going to let herself be late. The check-in line moved slowly. Emily clutched her boarding pass like it was a lifeline. She kept checking the time over and over. Still early, but the airport felt unstable. People were restless. A delay had been announced on a nearby flight. Not hers yet. She made it through security without issue. Shoes off. Laptop out? No problems. Then she looked up at the departures screen. Gate changed. Terminal B to Terminal D. She blinked, read it again. Her new gate was on the far side of the airport. She took a breath, pulled her bag higher on her shoulder. The clock read 7:32, boarding at 8:10. Still time, but less than before. And she hadn't eaten. Her stomach was tight, but she ignored it. She'd done harder things than this. Late shifts, snowstorms, rejections. This was just another hallway. She started walking quick, steady steps, determined not to let anything get in the way. Emily checked the signs overhead. Terminal D was a 12-minute walk if she kept pace. She didn't run, but she moved fast. Focused. The hallway was crowded. A family blocking one side, a man dragging a rolling suitcase too slowly. She weaved through quietly. Her phone buzzed, flight update on time. Gate D14. Boarding 8:10. She glanced at the time. 7:43. Her breathing picked up. Not panic, just urgency. This wasn't a missed alarm. This wasn't traffic. This part was on her. Each step echoed a little louder now. Her shoes, too thin for walking this much, began to hurt. She ignored it. Emily passed a coffee kiosk. She thought about stopping. just for a second. She hadn't eaten, but she kept going. She always kept going. She reached Terminal D at 7:51. Just ahead, a crowd. Something was slowing people down. She couldn't see why yet, but something was in the way. The crowd parted just enough for Emily to see. An elderly man was on one knee trying to gather papers from the floor. A suitcase lay open beside him. Shirts, socks, a photo frame, and loose documents spilled across the tile. He looked shaky. One hand gripped the edge of a bench. The other trembled as he reached for a crumpled boarding pass. No one stopped. Some stepped over his bag. One woman rolled her eyes and kept walking. Emily slowed. Just for a second. She checked the time, 7:54. She could still make it. Just needed to move. But the man's hand missed the photo. His fingers slipped. He looked around, lost, embarrassed. Her chest tightened. She had to decide. Walk past, like everyone else? Or stop. Her feet froze. This wasn't in her plan. But neither was ignoring someone who clearly couldn't stand up. Emily stood still. One voice in her head said, "You can't afford this." She looked toward gate D14. Just a few hundred feet ahead. No line yet. She could still make it. The other voice reminded her, "You know what it feels like to be left behind." She glanced back at the man. He was now on both knees trying to scoop a folded shirt with hands that didn't seem to work anymore. She'd seen her father like that once, after his stroke, helpless, frustrated, silent. No one helped him either. Her heart beat faster, not from stress but from something deeper. That weight again. She stepped forward. "Sir," she said, kneeling beside him, "let me help." He looked up surprised, then nodded. "Thank you," he whispered, eyes glassy. She gathered the papers, the shirt, the photo. The clock read 7:56. She had just traded minutes for something she couldn't name yet. Emily zipped the suitcase shut and helped the man to his feet. His knees wobbled. She steadied him with both hands. "You traveling alone?" she asked gently. He nodded. "Supposed to meet my son here, but things change." She didn't press. They started walking, slowly. He leaned on the cart. Each step took effort. Emily checked the time. 7:58. She could feel it slipping her window. Her gait was still ahead, but now her pace matched his. A few people glanced at them. No one said anything. No one offered to help. She kept going. She wasn't thinking about the interview anymore, just about getting this man to where he needed to be. But, under that, something began to tighten, a quiet dread, not loud, not dramatic, just a question. What if this costs me everything? She didn't say it out loud, but it was there, heavy, like every step. They passed a wall-mounted clock. 8:03. Emily's stomach tightened. Her flight boarded at 8:10. 7 minutes. She looked ahead. Her gait was still far, a straight path but crowded. The old man's steps were slow, measured. He didn't speak much, just focused on walking. She matched his pace, one hand lightly on his elbow. Behind her, other travelers rushed past, pulling bags, checking watches, some bumping shoulders without apology. Her legs wanted to run, but she didn't move. "Which gate are you headed to?" she asked. He fumbled in his coat, pulled out a crumpled paper. F7. He said softly. Emily paused. F7 was in the opposite direction. Her breath caught. Her gate, D14, was back where they'd started. She smiled gently, nodded. "All right," she said. "Let's get you there." She turned, quietly made peace with something inside her. Then she walked with him away from her flight. They moved slowly. The hallway toward gate F7 was long and quiet. Fewer people. Less noise. But Emily felt every second. Her legs ached. Her eyes kept glancing at signs, clocks, anything that might tell her this wasn't a mistake. But she already knew. Her flight was boarding now, maybe even closing. Still, she walked. The old man stopped near a window bench, breathing heavier now. He sat down carefully. Emily knelt beside him. "Do you need anything, water?" He nodded once. "If it's not too much trouble." She stood, walked to a nearby newsstand, bought a bottle of water, paid in coins from her coat pocket. As she walked back, she passed a gate announcement, "Final boarding call, Flight 218 to Seattle." She didn't stop, just kept walking. Quiet, focused. She handed him the water. He took it slowly, hands still shaking. "Thank you," he said. Emily smiled even as something inside her slipped away. The man took small sips of water. His hands steadied just a little. Emily sat beside him, eyes fixed on the floor. Her phone buzzed in her bag. She didn't need to check. She already knew. The flight was gone. She reached in anyway. One new notification. Your flight to Seattle has departed. Her chest tightened, but she didn't cry. She just stared at the words for a long time, then turned off the screen. Across from her, the man spoke. You didn't have to stop, you know. Emily looked at him. I know. He watched her face. Was it important? Wherever you were going, she nodded softly. Yeah, it was. Neither of them said anything else for a while. Emily rested her hands on her lap. Quiet. Still. No one applauded. No one even noticed. But in that silence, she let go of a plan she'd carried for months, and chose to stay seated. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was honest. Emily turned slightly toward him. I'm Emily, by the way. The man looked over and smiled, gentle but tired. Walter. She nodded. Nice to meet you, Walter. He paused. You too. Not many people stop these days. Emily gave a half smile. Maybe they're just in a hurry. Walter chuckled, but it came out dry. Maybe. There was something in his tone, not bitterness, but history. A tiredness that didn't just come from age. He stared at the photo she had picked up earlier. It was now tucked safely back into his bag. Emily asked quietly, Is that your family? He hesitated. Used to be. She didn't ask more. Some grief doesn't need explanation. Some stories sit just beneath the surface. So they sat there. Two strangers. One letting go of a flight. The other maybe letting go of something heavier. Walter stood slowly. He gripped the handle of the cart with both hands. His legs shook a little, but he nodded like he was ready. Emily stood too. Let's get you to gate F7, she said. She didn't look at the clock this time. No point. They began walking again, slow, steady. No rush, but no pause either. Walter leaned a bit more on the cart now. Emily stayed close, never in a hurry, never pushing. Every few feet, he'd stop for a second. Catch his breath, then continue. The terminal around them buzzed announcements, conversations, rolling bags. But between them it was quiet, steady. Emily kept her hand lightly on his back, not holding him up, just reminding him he wasn't alone. They reached the sign, gates F1, F10. This way. Walter exhaled. Almost there. Emily gave a soft nod, not just to him, but to herself. She had made her choice, and she was still walking with it. The final stretch to gate F7 felt longer than it looked. Walter's steps slowed. His breathing grew shallow. Emily noticed but didn't say anything. She just adjusted her pace again. The gate finally came into view just ahead, but the screen above it said what she feared boarding closed. Walter saw it too. He didn't react with panic. He simply stopped walking. Emily looked at him, then at the sign. She opened her mouth to say something but didn't. What could she say? Walter turned to her slowly, his face calm. Thank you, Emily. She looked at him surprised. You stayed, he said softly. Most people wouldn't. Emily's throat tightened. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. She'd missed her flight. His had likely closed too, and still he was thanking her. In that quiet moment she felt something shift. Not failure, not regret. Something heavier, and somehow better. Before Emily could respond, a woman in uniform stepped forward from behind the gate counter. Mr. Hayes, she said warmly, we've been expecting you. Emily froze. Walter straightened slightly. His posture didn't change much, but his presence did. The woman smiled at Emily. Thank you for bringing him. Everything is ready. Emily looked at Walter, confused. He gave a small nod, like this was normal, then turned back to her. This is where we part, he said. Emily's mind raced. Mr. Hayes. Expecting him, she thought he was just another passenger, alone, lost. But clearly, he wasn't. Walter reached out and shook her hand. You didn't know who I was, and you helped anyway. Emily couldn't find her words. She wasn't just standing next to someone in need. She had walked half a terminal with someone important. Very important. And somehow that didn't change what she felt, only deepened it. Emily turned to walk away. She didn't expect anything. No thanks, no recovery, just space to think. Her feet felt heavier than before. She walked toward the nearest airline desk. Maybe she could explain. Maybe they'd let her rebook. But part of her knew she couldn't afford a new ticket. Then it happened. A soft chime from the speakers overhead. Passenger, Emily Carter. Please report to gate F9. Emily Carter to gate F9. She stopped mid-step. Her name. She looked around. The announcement repeated. Gate F9. That wasn't her original gate. She checked her phone. No update, no alert. Just silence except her name still echoing in her mind. Someone had called for her. Not the airline, not an app. Someone who knew she was still here. She turned slowly, unsure what waited at that gate, but knowing something had just changed. And it started with her name. Emily hesitated. Gate F9 was behind her just a few gates away. Her legs didn't move right away. Neither did her thoughts. No one had ever called her name over an intercom before. Not like that. She checked again. No texts, no emails, no alerts. Just that one clear instruction, Gate F9. She turned, walked slowly. Not rushed, but alert. Her shoes echoed softly on the floor. Her hands curled around the strap of her bag. People passed her. She barely noticed. F9 came into view, not crowded, quiet. A woman in a navy blazer stood by the counter. As Emily approached, she smiled. "Ms. Carter," Emily nodded. "That's me. We've been waiting for you." Emily blinked. "I think there's been a mistake. My flight already," the woman interrupted gently. "It's all right. Please come with me." Emily looked around unsure. Then she followed. Not knowing where she was going, only that someone wanted her there. The woman led Emily past the usual waiting area. They walked down a quiet hallway, clean floors, soft lights, no announcements, no noise. Just the low hum of air vents and the sound of their footsteps. Emily didn't ask questions. Not yet. She watched, listened, tried to understand. At the end of the hallway was a sleek glass door. No sign, just a silver keypad. The woman typed a code. The door clicked open. "Right this way," she said. Emily stepped inside. Everything changed. The room was bright but calm. Leather chairs, a table with fruit and coffee, walls lined with books. A wide window overlooked the runway. But there were no crowds, no noise. It felt nothing like the airport she'd just come from. Emily stood still, her bag still on her shoulder, her heart quiet but alert. She hadn't been brought here by mistake. Someone had planned this. Someone was waiting. Emily stepped further into the room, careful, unsure. Then she saw him. By the window, standing tall in a tailored gray suit, was Walter. But not the same Walter she walked with. Not the fragile man with shaking hands. Not the one who leaned on her arm. This Walter stood straight. His voice when he turned was steady. "Emily." She froze. He smiled warmly, but with weight. "Thank you for waiting," he said. She didn't speak. Couldn't. Her brain tried to catch up. You're not—" He nodded before she could finish. "No, I'm not helpless. Not really. But I needed to know something." Emily stared at him. A dozen thoughts collided at once. Confusion, anger, wonder, and underneath it all, clarity. He wasn't testing her strength. He had been watching her heart. Walter stepped forward. "You helped someone when you thought no one was looking. That's why you're here." Emily finally found her voice. "So? Who are you, really?" Walter motioned for her to sit. She hesitated, then lowered herself into the leather chair across from him, her bag still clutched tight. "I'm Walter Hayes," he said simply. "I own this airline, and a few other things." Emily blinked. Why all this?" He leaned forward. Calm, clear. "Because I wanted to see how someone acts when there's nothing to gain, when no one's watching." She looked down. "I missed a job interview." "I know," he said softly. "That's why I asked them to call your name." Emily stared at him. "You set this up?" "No," Walter replied. "You did, the moment you stopped walking." Silence sat between them again, but now it felt different. Not empty, just full of meaning. Emily didn't know what came next, but she knew somehow this conversation wasn't about what she'd lost. It was about what she was being offered. Emily took a breath. "I don't have a resume with me." Walter smiled. "You don't need one." She blinked. "But—" "I missed my only chance. That interview was everything to me." Walter nodded slowly. "I understand. But I have something else to offer." Emily said nothing. He leaned in steady. "We're building a new division, community partnerships, local branding campaigns that feel real, not corporate fluff." Her heart skipped. "I want someone who understands people. Struggle, kindness, quiet strength." She swallowed. "I've never led anything big." Walter's voice was calm. "You led something today." He paused. "When others walked by, you stopped. You gave up time, maybe your shot, for someone you thought couldn't offer you anything. His eyes didn't blink. That's leadership I can trust. Emily sat still. No elevator pitch, no application form. Just a chair, a voice, and an unexpected offer. The kind that sees the person before the title. Emily sat quietly. She wasn't smiling. Not yet. Not sure if she should. "This can't be real," she said under her breath. Walter didn't push. He just waited. Emily looked down at her hands. "I was just trying to do the right thing." "I know," he said. "That's exactly why you're here." She thought of her missed interview. The resume she never handed in. The money she didn't have to rebook a flight. And the man she'd almost walked past. "Why me?" she asked. Walter answered gently. "Because how you treat someone when no one's watching tells me everything I need to know." Silence again. Then, just above a whisper, Emily said, "Yes." It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it landed like a decision that had been waiting inside her for years. Walter nodded. "Good, you start next week." Emily exhaled slowly, and for the first time that day, she let herself believe it. Walter stood and reached across the table. Emily shook his hand. This time her grip didn't hesitate. He motioned to the window. A small jet sat on the runway separate from the commercial flights. "We'll take you home tonight. No stress. And next week, we'll fly you to our office in Los Angeles. First class." Emily looked at him. "I don't understand why you're doing this." Walter paused. "Because you reminded me of someone I used to be," he said. "Someone who didn't walk past people in pain." He pointed to the photo she'd picked up hours ago. It sat on a nearby table, now framed undamaged. "That was my wife. She believed in quiet kindness. You did exactly what she would have done." Emily's eyes stung. She hadn't just helped a stranger. She'd honored a memory, and now that small act was opening a door she never knew existed. Emily followed Walter back down the hallway. It was the same walk, but everything felt different now. No rushing, no weight of missing out, just quiet steps. As they passed gate F7, she looked at the empty chairs. Hours ago, that gate meant sacrifice. Now it meant something else the moment everything changed. She thought of the terminal crowd earlier, how many people had walked past, how close she came to doing the same. She remembered her father years ago trying to open a medicine bottle with hands that couldn't grip. No one helped him in the store, not even the cashier. That memory had never left her, and maybe that's why she stayed. Maybe that's what kindness really is, a choice born from pain we don't talk about. Emily didn't leave the airport the way she planned, but she wasn't lost. She was being redirected by something larger than her resume ever could explain. Outside the window, the small jet stood waiting. Not crowded, no announcements, just quiet open sky beyond the glass. Walter turned to her. "Your seat's ready." Emily glanced back once at the terminal, the hallway, the life she thought she was chasing. Then she stepped forward. The staircase to the plane was short, but each step felt like leaving behind the version of herself who believed success only came one way. A uniformed attendant opened the door. "Welcome aboard, Ms. Carter." She nodded, her voice caught in her chest. Inside it wasn't luxury that struck her. It was the silence, the clarity, the stillness of a new path forming. She sat by the window. No boarding pass, no ID check, just trust. She hadn't caught the flight she planned. She caught the one that found her, the one made possible by a moment of quiet kindness, and that had made all the difference. 1 week later, Emily stood in a small conference room in Los Angeles. Not a stage, no spotlight, just her, a circle of people, and a whiteboard filled with messy notes. She was leading her first team meeting. They were building something real, campaigns that helped people, not just sold to them. Someone asked a question. She paused, answered carefully. Her voice didn't shake. After the meeting, she stepped outside. The sky was open, the air warm. She pulled out her phone. No missed flights, no job alerts, just a new email, project approval, proceed. Emily smiled. Not big, just enough. She thought back to the airport, to Walter, to the moment her plan fell apart and her life began to open. No applause, no viral video, just quiet change, rooted in one choice, to stop, and that small moment had carried her all the way here. That evening, Emily opened her inbox again. One new message, from Walter Hayes. Subject, just one more thing. She clicked. "Emily, I watched the meeting today. Quietly. From the glass upstairs. You held the room with honesty. Not with titles, with care. That's what this company needs. It's what this world forgets. You didn't know anyone was watching at the airport, and you still chose right. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't ask for credit. I hope you never stop being that person. My wife would have liked you. W. Emily sat for a long time. She didn't reply, just rested her hand on the trackpad, then closed the laptop. Some messages don't need an answer. They just need to be heard and remembered. A few days later, Emily took a short drive. No press, no invitation, just an address Walter had once mentioned in passing. A small garden tucked behind a quiet church. Nothing fancy. She parked, walked through the gate. At the far end beneath an old oak tree was a stone bench, and next to it, a plaque. Margaret Hayes. She believed small kindness could move the world. Emily stood still, then sat. She didn't bring flowers, no speeches. She just looked at the name. After a long pause, she whispered, "Thank you for being that kind of person and for helping him become the kind of man who helped me." The wind moved gently. A leaf dropped beside her. She didn't move. Some visits aren't about saying much. They're about showing up and letting the silence do the rest. Emily stood up from the bench. As she walked back to her car, she reached into her bag and felt it, a worn, folded sticky note. The one from that early morning. "You showed up? That's enough?" She smiled softly. This time she didn't need the reminder. She knew it was true. Emily stood up from the bench. She took one last look at the plaque, then turned to leave. As she walked back to her car, she passed a young woman by the gate struggling to carry a stroller and suitcase at once. People walked past. Emily didn't. She stopped, stepped in. "Need a hand?" The woman looked up surprised. "Actually, yeah. Thank you." Emily smiled. "Of course." She lifted the suitcase gently, walked beside her to the curb. Quiet. Simple. No one clapped. No spotlight. Just another quiet moment. But this time she knew what it meant. Not just to the woman, to her, because that's how the world changes. Not all at once, but one unnoticed choice at a time. If this story moved you, pause and ask who could use a hand today, because maybe your small kindness is someone else's turning point. Maybe it's already begun. But here's the real question. Will you stop like Emily did? Or will you walk past like everyone else? The choice is always quiet, but it's always yours.